There's a cute anecdote. The story is told of a wealthy individual who offered an enormous amount of money if somebody could answer a question that he had on a pasuk in this week's Parasha. The Torah says, Beshalach Parasha v'loy nacham. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, v'loy nacham. So he wanted to know, how come Nachum wasn't entitled? How come he couldn't leave Mitzrayim with the rest of the Yidden? Why was he left out? And he offered an enormous amount of money if someone could tell him such an answer. And the first person comes to him and he says, Rabbi Yid, I have to be honest with you, I have to tell you the truth. You're reading the pasuk wrong. V'yi Beshalach Parasha. Pari sends Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. V'loy nachem elikim derech eretz plishtim. You're putting the pause in the wrong place. V'loy nachem elikim derech eretz plishtim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want to take them through the land of Plishtim because he was afraid that maybe they would turn back to Mitzrayim. His fellow turns to him and he says, you're trying to minimize the tremendous kasha that I have? That's not what I'm looking for. So somebody in the crowd realized that he's dealing with this kind of person, and he was somewhat of a chaver man. So he steps forward and he tells him, you're asking an amazing kasha. And he says, I want to ask you another question. Every Friday night, the Nusach Ashkenaz, right before they start Ma'ariv, after Kabbalah Shabbos, we read the Mishnah, the Mishnayos, the Masechta Shabbos that says a list of all the different oils that one should not use for Neiros Shabbos because they don't burn well. And one of the examples are V'loy B'chelev, Nachem Hamadi Yomer. So yes, the affluent individual, he says V'loy B'chelev Nachem. Why can't you use Nachem's chelev? What's wrong with Nachem's chelev? Everybody else's chelev is good. Those wicks he could use, but Nachem's wicks he can't use. He says, I'll tell you what happened. We all know the Medrash tells us that when it came to the Makkah of Dam, that the Mitzrayim, all the water that they had, they turned into blood. And if they wanted to be able to drink water, they had to purchase it from the Jews. And the Yidden became very wealthy because they were able to charge a lot of money for the water. So here, Nachem hears that the Makkah of Choshech is coming. So Nachem says to himself, by the Egyptians, there's going to be so much darkness. So what did he do? He figured he has a great investment. He's going to buy all the wicks in all of Egypt. And then everyone's going to come running to Nachem to purchase his wicks. So like this, he'll become a very rich man. So what happens? He buys out all the candles, the Makas Choshech comes, the Mitzrayim can't see, and Nachem comes running to the Mitzvah and he says, here, I got the wicks that are going to light. But it doesn't help, it's still darkness. It didn't work this time. It was time to leave Egypt. And Nachem says, I can't leave. I have a whole warehouse of all this merchandise, of all these candles, of all these wicks. So Chazal, they made a gzeira. They said, Nachem, he didn't want to leave Mitzrayim. V'loy b'chelev Nachem, he can't use Nachem's wicks. So that's why the pasuk says, V'yibeshalach parai esa'am v'loy Nachem. Nachem didn't want to leave. So that's why v'loy Nachem, that's why they made a gzeira, not to use the wicks of Nachem. A cute anecdote. But getting back to the real pshat of the pasuk, we know Rashi tells us that the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want to send them derech eretz plishtim is because he was afraid that maybe they would go back to Mitzrayim. They wouldn't go to the journey. They won't end up reaching Har Sinai to be makabel the Torah. But if you look, the Balei Tosis offers an amazing explanation. Zok the Balei Tosis v'yibeshalach parasha v'loy nachem elikim derech eretz plishtim ki karevu. This is a lesson for life. So many times a person goes through the journey of life, and it seems that all the obstacles, the bumps in the road, the different vicissitudes of life, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu abandoned him, and he's left to walk all alone. It seems like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is no longer leading and conducting his way of life. Says the Balei Tosfos, you know what the pasuk's saying? Ki karevu, perish the thought. You know why? Because you're a karev, the Rebbeinu Shalom so close with you. Livnei Yisrael am kirevai, we are the krevim of the Rebbeinu Shalom, we are his children. And therefore, no matter what we're faced with in life, we should always realize that it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's being manning us and he's leading us, no matter how difficult it may seem. But let's end off with the explanation of the Heilige Chafetz Chaim. The Chavetz Chaim Zatzal says such a beautiful insight, which is such a lesson, a fundamental lesson and a message for our life. Here we're faced with two paths. We could go Derech Eretz Plishtim. It's a place, there's a ma'ila, there's a benefit to travel through the land of Plishtim. After all, there's agriculture, there's irrigation, there's fruits, there's mazon, there's food, there's provisions, there's sustenance. We're able to purchase any food that we need. But if we go Derech Eretz Plishtim, it's a tremendous challenge because the Yetzer Hara is ready to pounce on us. Ervas Haaretz, that's where the Tumah is. We could be lured into Chet. But then if you go with the Midbar, yes, there's a tremendous gain. It's Eretz Shemema, it's a desolate land. The Yetzer Hara is not as bad, there's no Tumah there. We could excel in spirituality in our Ruchnius. But on the other hand, the Chesaron is, there's no food, there's no mazon, there's no provisions. Which path does one take? Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm going to take you to the Midbar. You know why? Because I'm the one that provides Parasha. And I'm going to give you the man. And you're going to be fed from Lechem and Hashemayim. So the Chavetz Chaim, so many times in life, perhaps we're faced. If I take this job, it'll be easier to provide livelihood for my family. It'll be easier for me to make a Parasha. But at the same time, we're confronted with greater and larger nisyonis if I would take that position. But yet, if I would take a seemingly different job, perhaps the pay is not as much. But it's in a setting, the environment, the surroundings are better for my ruchnius. So the Chavetz Chaim, read the pasuk. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm the one that provides your parnasa. And let this serve as a lesson that the same way HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent us derech hamidbar and was ready to give us the man, but not to have an environment and a surrounding of Eretz Plishtim, because ultimately, after all, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu that provides us with our parnasa. Let's internalize these great messages. Just to recap, the Chavetz Chaim, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu that provides us with our parnasa. And therefore, one shouldn't sacrifice his ruchnius, because he has to realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to provide for him. Let's remember the lesson of the Bali Tosfos. One thinks he's all alone, he's abandoned by the Rebbeinu Shalom. No, Kikarvu, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's taking you on the path that's best for your soul, that's best for your neshama. Have a great Shabbos.